Sorry. Though my notes say good afternoon, I can say good morning. Good morning,
Yes.
Chairman Mendelson, members of the committee staff, and council members. I'm Reggie Van Lee, Chairman of the Commission on the Arts and Humanities, CAH. Thank you for this opportunity to update the council on the Commission's work during the past fiscal year. During FY 2023, the Commissioners have been focused on enhancing the efficiency of the grant-making process by taking steps to transform the agency into a highly efficient, paperless grant-making entity, developing a procedure that includes a timely implementation and systematic approach to grant allocation, creating programs, events, and festivals that attract residents and tourists to the district, and beginning the process of launching a dedicated foundation that will assist arts organizations that require capacity building and technical support. This foundation will possess a commitment to nurturing a diverse and vibrant arts ecosystem, supporting these entities at their various stages of growth and development. The Commission is also looking to expand the District of Columbia's creative reach by organizing an international arts showcase that will result in the revitalization of the downtown area. Market research shows that art fairs are significant economic drivers for cities. One of the most attended and well-run art showcases is that of Art Basel Miami Beach. Their local economists estimate Art Basel has an annual economic impact of anywhere between $400 million and $500 million a year. This revenue is a direct result of the business that includes hotel stays, ride share, restaurants, and event venues. During our meetings at Art Basel in Florida, we learned firsthand how a showcase of this magnitude is planned, organized, and implemented. Art Basel Miami Beach features a week-long onslaught of programs with artwork from leading art galleries from 5 continents, as well as a host of fairs, special exhibitions, and receptions. We saw the steps that went into planning such a large event, and we've begun the initial steps of coordinating a similar event here in the district. We began and continue to conduct several stakeholder meetings, allowing us to obtain input or buy-in, if you will, from the local artists who are the expected likely participants in a district art week, as well as engaging with other government agencies. Our vision of an Art Week DC 2025 features an art fair, festival, or biennale, creating an event that is on somewhat different scale than an Art Basel, but accomplishes the same results and is unique to the district. The Commission is expecting to request an RFP between $150,000 and $250,000 for a consultant to refine that vision soon. In January, the Commission created an ad hoc committee led by Commissioner Chase Maggiano to facilitate the process of establishing a foundation, totally separate from the Commission, as a direct response from the arts community for additional funding. This committee consists of both commissioners and members from the community and assumes the task of exploring the creation or partnership with a private community arts foundation and will seek legal clarity on what kinds of relationships may be developed with a private art foundation possessing these characteristics. Our commissions have done research on this issue and learned this model is not unique. It is based on other cities that currently have private foundations with broadly aligned goals with city arts agencies, but are totally independent. A similar model locally is the DC Public Library Foundation that maintains a working relationship with the DC Public Library system, but is entirely separate and apart from the DC Public Library. This work does not overlap with the work of CAH, but is an attempt to fill the existing gap in funding for those organizations that are not nonprofits and would otherwise be unable to qualify for any of the current CAH grants, as well as potential funding for a DC International Arts event that I spoke about earlier. The committee is expected to produce detailed recommendations on the functionality of the relationship between CAH and the proposed foundation by the October 2024 CAH meeting. The goal is to have this project completed soon. In addition to the committee that is currently working on the creation of a foundation, the commissioners have also formed an Inclusion, Diversity, Equity, and Access, IDEA, committee to address any possible flaws in our grant awarding process that may overlook nonprofits led by women, people of color, and people with disabilities. Led by Commissioner Cicely Habimana, the IDEA committee is hard at work mapping out a plan to promote fairness and inclusivity in the allocation of grants. One of the committee's most promising endeavors is an application of specific procedures requiring diversity data in mid-year reports for organizations, boards, staff, and consultants. This policy is immediately scheduled for implementation within the next cycle of grant applications. Finally, we'd like the Council to reconsider the restrictions that were implemented following passage of the Budget Support Act last year. We're asking for these revisions after hearing from the artistic community through the results of a survey issued by the Commission. The first suggested revision to the BSA we'd like to put before the Council is a language that established a minimum award for a large capital project grant for facility improvement at $900,000. The Commission recommends that the minimum award amount start at $500,000 instead. Feedback from the survey informed us that many organizations would never encounter a $900,000 project. Additionally, this adjustment will resolve the gap of project award sizes between large capital project grants and the capital projects grant. Another part of the legislation that the Commission is asking the Council to reconsider is a section that requires ownership of a property or a lease of at least 30 years before a CAH grant may be awarded for improvements. We're suggesting, regardless of the lease term, that the criteria should also permit applicants who intend to own a facility upon completion of the project. Again, from our survey, we learned that 60% of the respondents were hoping to use the awarded grant facility funding for facility purchases, the largest project most of these organizations will pursue. The last issue we'd like to address from the BSA is that approved projects will improve a facility with a tax valuation of at least $1 million. Our recommendation is that the amount should be lowered to $500,000. Again, our survey respondents, primarily those in Ward 7 and 8, are concerned because their property does not meet the $1 million tax valuation threshold. Due to circumstances beyond their control, they would be deemed ineligible to apply for the largest CAH grant. As you may have noticed, our commissioners have been hard at work, collaborative, and focusing on accomplishing the needs of our creative community, as well as expanding the district's artistic reach across the country. Our aim is to expand that reach worldwide. We appreciate the committee's support of our work, and thank you for the opportunity to testify today. I look forward to answering any questions committee members may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Van Lee. Mr. Myers.
Good morning, Chairman Mendelson, and members of the committee staff, and council members. I'm Aaron Myers, Executive Director of the Commission on Arts and Humanities, and I want to thank you for the opportunity to present to you the agency's previous accomplishments, as well as some of our proposed FY 2025 goals. Entering the recovery and revitalization mode in our city, it's important to remember that during COVID-19 pandemic, the arts and cultural sector was one of the hardest hit industries, with venue closures, reduced staff, and dramatically adjusted reprogramming. As a full-time independent artist, I felt it firsthand. I witnessed CAH host a series of online community engagement programs. The goal for these events was to provide resources, professional development, professional learning, and network opportunities for district artists and arts and humanities organizations in a virtual setting. Among the virtual events were 2 tele-town halls, 7 Business of the Arts workshops, 6 CAH in the community presentations, 4 artist showcases, and 4 DC Art Beat podcast interviews. In addition to the virtual program, CAH awarded nearly $29 million in grants to district artists and organizations throughout all 8 wards. As the District of Columbia continues to recuperate from the pandemic, its art scene is once again beginning to thrive. As we gain our footing in a return to normalcy, CAH has a goal of leading the post-pandemic recovery of the district's nonprofit arts and culture sector by playing an important role in the area's broader economic and renewal efforts. Last year, CAH resumed many of its in-person projects, events, and festivals. For an example, the agency supported the World Cultural Festival, the Art All Night activation in Canal Park in conjunction with an open house for the CAH Gallery, the 2023 Art Bank finalists, and a grantee meet and greet, just to name a few of our programs. The Commission kicked off 2024 with the launch of the Legacy Civil Rights at 60 themed exhibition that commemorates the 60th anniversary of President Lyndon B. Johnson's signing of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. The juried events features the work of approximately 50 of our grantees whose designs represent some phase of the social justice movement. The event began with a press conference that featured our very own Commissioner Court Masters Berry and Dr. Terrence Roberts of the Little Rock Nine. The opening reception lured at least 300 people to the CAH Gallery to view the exhibit and network with some of the featured artists. In coordination with the exhibit, on February 8th, our Public Arts Department held an artist panel discussion with some of the Legacy Civil Rights 60 exhibitors to explain their inspiration for their artistic creations. Again, the CAH Gallery was completely filled for this event. Coming up this Friday, March 1st, our Public Arts Department will hold another panel discussion and reception to close out the exhibition. That will include John Miles Lewis, son of civil rights activists John and Lillian Lewis, and DC civil rights attorney Edie Ford, who brought forth the racial discrimination case against the U.S. Department of Agriculture in William versus Vilsack. You may have already received your invitation via email. On the heels of this successful event, CAH Public Arts is partnering with Child and Family Services Agency to launch a new exhibition in mid-March. In addition to the CAH events that they have created, there's also a multitude of grants that both Public Arts and the official grants department has distributed. In 2023, the agency continued the trend of expanding the granting process to those individuals and organizations that have not previously received funding from the Commission. We have done this by holding stakeholder meetings that allow us to assist prospective grantees in the training of the grant application process and how to accurately maneuver the district integrated financial system, DIFS, that so many previous grantees are struggling to navigate. In 2023, the Public Arts Department issued almost $1.7 million in grant funding, while the Grants Department issued almost $33 million, and the agency is on track to issue even more dollars in grant funding in FY 2024. While CAH, our budgetary and programmatic increases are largely due to the success in our administering of grants, our internal infrastructure support has not kept pace with that growth. CAH is now faced with a must-hire situation if we are to continue to improve project delivery performance, achieve overall organizational efficiency, and boost staff morale. We're down 4 grant managers. The grant staff is burning the candle at both ends. Please keep in mind that grant manager duties are not limited to the management of active projects, but are also comprised of assisting applicants, preparing application materials, preparing materials for commission meetings, and addressing compliance concerns. These tasks have been coupled with an increasing project workload that has overextended CAH grant managers. Additionally, the average number of grants given for an acceptable grantee portfolio is approximately 65 grantees. Our grant managers are averaging in excess of 100 grantees per individuals, understanding that grantees may have multiple projects. Although our grant managers are performing a yeoman's job, the factors that I have outlined are impeding their ability to proactively manage grants, leading to delays in the distribution process. Our grant managers have overextended their capacity to effectively perform their primary duties. Statistics from GUT and UX market data report shows that overworked employees, those working approximately 55 hours a week or more, have an increased risk of stroke of 35% and an increased risk of heart disease of 17%. I want to thank these grant managers for all their hard work, because the successes that we have achieved could not have been made possible without them. I have promised them more grant managers to lighten their load with your assistance. I would also like to thank the rest of the CAH staff, many of whom have chipped in to assist and whose dedication I greatly appreciate. As far as the artistic community we serve, CAH has learned that there is a shortage of creative space for members of the creative community. To resolve this issue, CAH has strategically partnered with the councils of bids to pair artists and arts organizations with property owners who have vacant space across all 8 wards. The commission is also engaged in an interagency collaboration with the Deputy Mayor of Planning and Economic Development, DMPED, and the Department of Small and Local Business, DSLBD, to deploy a space survey initiated by the commission in response to our grantees. CAH will also assist in the development of a census and survey of the arts community, starting with music. We have partnered with Sound Music Cities to gather data that is beneficial to the district as we work to help support this industry. Now, as for the upcoming fiscal year, CAH is creating a strategic plan that allows for a more diverse and inclusive grant awarding process. This includes establishing pods in the community to establish better outreach and local organizations and faith-based leaders, as well as upgrading our panelist preparation, creating a category or direct grants financial support specifically for disabled, BIPOC, LGBTQ+, arts administrators, and organizers. We are also helping those smaller organizations grow by evaluating the feasibility of using different formulas but the same selection criteria. To ensure these programs are implemented, CAH has hired a diversity and inclusion professional who is experienced and knowledgeable about these processes. These are only a few of the many goals that CAH is looking to reach in the next fiscal year. It is for this reason that critical investments and resources are needed to maintain the high standards that have been set by this agency, meaning additional staff to implement these much-needed programs and the increase in the current CAH budget that we are proposing. Any budget cuts would be detrimental to the agency's performance and hinder implementation of these much-needed programs. We appreciate the committee's strong support of our work, and we thank you for the opportunity to testify today. I look forward to answering any question committee members may have. I would also note that during our transition here, we do not have our budget resource allocation officer. We have one who just started, but we do have a representative from the OCFO's office.
Thank you, Mr. Myers. Thank you, Mr. Van Lee. Thank you, everybody behind you, works for the commission. I'm going to actually pick up on something you said near the end of your testimony, Mr. Myers, where you said any budget cuts would be detrimental to the agency's performance. Several witnesses testified in objection to the budget being cut. The mayor hasn't even submitted a budget. As you know, there's dedicated funding. The sales tax has gone up. So I don't, is the commission the source of this unease in the community that the budget's being cut?
Not only the commission is the source, I believe the thoughts of the cap that has been put on to us and other independent agencies is something that is concerning the cap to our growth as far as the 5% that we get, the 102%.
This was the cap that the mayor proposed last year. The council was only able to remove it in the outside the financial plan, but that's still a growth. That's not a cut. Quote, any budget cuts, unquote. Well, that's not a cut.
Well, not only that, I mean, we did add money or move money or shift money to another program, I think the large cap program that we have here, that also took money from what we would be doing possibly with the other programs that we have allocated.
I don't think that's correct either, because remember, we had very weird percentages in order to meet the dollars, which minimized, in fact, did not reduce the grants. For instance, in FY23, $20 million was budgeted for general operating support, and with the weird 47.48%, $20 million was budgeted for general operating support. That's not a cut.
If I may, I think the issue is each year the number of grantees we serve has increased significantly, both in money to existing grantees and the new grantees. So an anticipated budget that reflects trying to meet the need of our grantees is one that will grow more than the cap that has been placed on us. I think that's what people are anticipating, that problem. And to hold our funding, if I may, to hold our funding as we have in the past, we've had to go into our coffers, and our coffers can only last so long, the fund balance. So I think people who understand the process understand that given the growth we've had and given the growth that we need to meet the growing needs of our constituents, given the cap, it's not going to be possible for us to continue to support people at that level. That's what people are deducing.
That's still not a cut, Mr. Van Lee.
You can use the terminology you wish, but our grantees are concerned that in order for us to meet their needs going forward, we will not be able to meet their needs because of the cap.
Okay, so, Mr. Van Lee, not to push back too hard, but I don't appreciate the council being criticized for cutting the budget. Quote, any budget cuts. A cut is a reduction. To limit the growth, which is what the mayor proposed last year, is not a cut. And we don't yet know what the mayor is going to propose for next year. So it's
Then
hard to
if
say
there are no
that,
cuts, then we're
again,
fine.
we have
Yes.
cut.
If there are no cuts, we're fine.
I'm sorry.
If there are no cuts, we're fine.
Let me ask this question. I'll begin with this. We sent our questions to you late. Most of the questions you'd gotten earlier in draft form. We sent the final version of questions late. I appreciate that you turned them around. So I'll own that we were late in getting them to you. Looking at that, if I remember correctly, the number of positions you have for grants, grant managers, grant staff is actually down 4 from last year, even though the budget for the agency shows an additional an additional 7 FTEs. So in FY22, you had 31 FTEs. Approved for this year is 45. That's a difference of 15. Last year was 38, but you have fewer grant people.
Yes, in the BSA last year, in the committee notes, when the vote happened, we had proposed that we would be able to hire at least 7 grant managers, and there was a restriction put there that limited the amount of grant managers specifically that we could hire. And so that left us down 4 grant managers that we needed. It may have been a mistake or something not intentional, I'm not sure.
That doesn't change the fact that the number of FTEs has increased in the agency. So
Yes.
it is your choice whether those new positions are grant managers or other
It
positions.
was not our choice.
No, in the language for the BSA, we were restricted by the amount of grant managed specifically.
You'll have to show me that language.
Yes, we can give you
It
that
says
language.
the commission is restricted in the number of grant managers.
It was granular to grant managers. So what the staff positions that we have hired have been staff positions that have been hopefully able to support the agency in many other ways, dealing
But
with our
that's, I
But,
think that's the point here, is that that's a choice.
well, it was not our choice. What we would have liked to have done was to have hired more grant managers to help with the pace of the growth and the need of the agency.
And hire other positions as well.
Right, so we did hire what we could hire.
Let's be clear here, that
Yes.
the commission has grown in FTEs from 31 in 2022 to 45 in this year. That's budgeted FTEs. That's an increase of 50%. Now, you chose where those positions would be. And
No,
you could
no, no, no,
argue,
no, 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 no.
Not true.
We were restricted with the amount of grant managers that we could hire. Otherwise, we would have hired 4 more grant managers that would have been able to help us keep up with pace.
4 more on top of, so your argument is that instead of being budgeted at 45, you should have been budgeted at 49.
No, we're saying that if we could have allocated those positions as we would have wished, some of those other positions we would not have filled, and we would have filled those grant managers' positions.
All right,
But
that's
but
news
the
to me.
notes told us we could only hire so many grant managers.
Right.
We would have liked the ability to say, here's the number of FTEs you can increase, and give us the opportunity to allocate that based on our needs. We were not given that in the grant category in particular.
All right, well, that's news to me that you weren't given that opportunity, but. There was some back and forth. I don't
Yes.
recall you're saying to us, well, we'll go to 45, and we need 19 grant managers.
Well, we did bring that up to you, it was too late because the vote had already happened, once we brought that up. So once we
Okay,
realized,
there
we
were
didn't.
2 weeks between the votes, and I met with you before the first vote, as I recall.
Well, that was not brought up in the first meeting, what we had before. That wasn't even brought up as an issue. We were surprised to see that the limitation happened in that time span. And once we did notice that it was an issue and we reached out, it was too late because the first vote had already taken place.
We were prepared to staff it with the total number given in the way that made sense for us. We were not allowed to do that on the grant category. Right. We were told specifically how many increases in grant managers we could do, which was news to us. That is not something that has happened traditionally. So,
okay, we're just going back and forth here. When the council adopted the budget, you had 2 weeks between first reading and second reading. I met with you all before the first reading. You had a sense that we were going to take term positions, which are one-time funded, term positions. I don't recall a discussion where you said, within the 45, we'd rather have so many be grant managers. No, I don't recall that discussion.
Well, but in the first discussion.
And you just said that you actually came to us after the budget was voted on, which is a little bit late. But there's also the ability to reprogram. I mean, I have some flexibility here to work with you all. So I'm just, it's easy to blame the council, but the fact of the matter is that your number of FTEs has gone up by 50% from 31 to 45. All right, that's not quite 50% in 2 years. And I'm getting complaints that there aren't enough grant managers. And so where did those 15 positions go? Well, they went to someplace other than grant managers, but I'm being told that grant managers isn't enough, and somehow it's our fault that we prevented you from hiring grant managers.
The grant manager positions, we were, again, I'm not sure how else to say it. So when we first met, there was no indication given to us before the first reading that what we had proposed in the type of support we needed in the realm of grant managers was even being considered being cut at all. Once the first vote had happened and this was made, we were made aware of this, we drew a concern. We did state that what we would do, we would try to mitigate that issue the best we could during this year. So we went through our contractors to see if the contractors could be able to support us, knowing they would not be able to give us the full support that we would need, but they would be able to help us mitigate the issue the best that we could. So there were other positions. Mind you, when this agency was created and the extra money was given, the dedicated tax was given, there was no scale plan put in place for this agency so that it could pace from an infrastructure standpoint along with the budget and the people that it was trying to support. What I have done coming on board is try to help meet the need of filling positions so that they can meet the needs of the agency based upon the budget that they now support, and mitigate the issue with the reduced or the restriction in the amount of grant managers that we could have. We did not anticipate that there were grant managers or that the council may, from a granular level, restrict the specific department or the people that we needed in regard to grant managers to support the work that we did. With that happening, we did lean on some contractors, but that was not the same support that we really needed. We needed grant managers that were FTEs. So we would love the opportunity to be able to hire not only whom we want to hire, but to put them in positions we believe would best support the agency. I think that reduction, or I think it may have been a negotiation, I'm not sure. I don't think it was anticipated the ramifications it would have had upon the agency. And so we were already understaffed when it came to grant managers to begin with. And when we had more outreach, more applicants, more money, we have been trying to meet the need of the general public. And with that reduction or that specific restriction, it really impeded our ability to not only move grants in the way that we wanted to move, but I believe the weight it put on each one of our grant managers is a bit untenable. So I believe we can work together.
If I could add something. So the increase that we needed in FTEs really reflected how understaffed we were to begin with.
Right.
So any number of positions, we had all of these events we're having, we had no event staff. We had to hire event staff. We didn't have a DEI person in the staff. we had to hire 2 people there. So the increase may have seemed large, but it was a function of we were under-resourced to begin with. But in the grants category in particular, with the increase in our grants, we needed those extra positions. And if we have the flexibility, if you give us a number we can hire and give us the opportunity to staff that as we make sense, we can eradicate the problem. We would not give that opportunity in the grants category.
Mr. Myers, when did you start as the executive director?
April 6th.
So it was actually in the middle of the budget process.
My hearing, my confirmation hearing happened the day of the budget oversight hearing.
Councilmember Henderson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon.
Thank you.
I'm trying to follow along because I don't see anything in the Budget Support Act, so I'm in terms of limiting, but that's neither here nor there. I have a few questions I wanted to ask about. One issue that interestingly has come up that I've heard from a number of arts organizations is around the limitation that was put on the commission in terms of an organization not being able to receive a grant that's more than 50% of the organization's budget. These are, a couple of these organizations are out of school time organizations. They serve children. In fact, one of the young people testified last night about their experience with DC Strings. And I'm curious, it hasn't been in effect that long, but I wanted to give you an opportunity to speak to the impact that that has had in terms of some of your longstanding grantees.
Yeah, the data that we have does not show that limiting the amount of GOS funding toward organizations, especially smaller art organizations, actually helps them, will help them grow or help them reach the desired clients and the public they're hoping to reach. What we have seen is that the GOS money, the money that we have offered to these organizations, they've done predominantly 2 things. They have used it for payroll. That means to hire staff, whether it's 1099 workers or to hire skilled workers as FTE people, or to increase the programming. Now, increasing the programming and hiring staff accomplishes both of the goals of the city right now as far as revitalization is concerned. So the programming that we see for many of these smaller organizations are in neighborhoods that are throughout the entire city that have a positive impact. Those, for instance, if you have a dance company that has 60 or 40 people who are rehearsing 4 days a week, they come, they drive into the neighborhood, they eat, they drink, they support, and if they have events, they draw people to a neighborhood that was otherwise people would not be coming to, in a sense. That is reflected also in larger art organizations. The difference is that many of the larger art organizations already have the infrastructure to be able to do many of the things that these smaller organizations would not be able to do unless we were able to give them the funding. Sometimes it's in excess of 50% of what their budget is. I think the other piece of this is that the restriction also included if these organizations received any other type of public funds. So we could only, from any other agency. From any other agency. So that means that we could give 50% of your budget less than any other public funds that have been given to you. So that further reduced the amount of support that we could offer to the
So if we took an organization like DC Strings, who would also be receiving funding from the Office of Out of School Time, then that would reduce whatever they're able to get from you all as well.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay. I think that's important to sort of double upon that. As someone who, I know yesterday, Mr. Chairman made a comment about all of the extracurricular activities that I did when I was younger. Violin was one, orchestra was another, chorus, gavel club, et cetera. But the point being is that those were CBO organizations that were doing all of this. And so when you have that, these additional limitations that are stacking,
right?
Because I don't think a lot of people realize that the stacking could certainly have another impact on that as well.
And also note that there's spaces when with the public school system where there have been certain cuts made that these organizations usually pick up from where these young people would like normally not have any access to any type of art exposure whatsoever if it were not for these organizations being in these spaces.
Correct. Okay. Okay. I'm interested to learn more about the space survey that you all have been conducting. How far along is the commission in this process?
We have populated the survey. We have worked along with both DSLBD, DMPED, The only thing that we're working on now is the repository. And so once we know how the data can be collected and then aggregated, that information would be going to all of the council and to all of our public partners, both in government and then also on the private side. So I think our goal is that through this survey, we won't have to wonder how the arts could possibly help revitalize downtown and other commerce sectors here in the city.
Okay. So in terms of timeline of it being launched, what's the goal, hope?
We're hoping within 2 weeks.
Within 2 weeks?
That's our goal.
Okay. And is this something that would be an annual, ongoing survey?
I think we would know whether it would be annual once we get the data from the first one. Right now, we're uncertain, other than the people who've done public testimony at our commission meetings, as to the desire or the need for space or the want for space. I think once we get this data, we will know exactly how we are to track it. Maybe it's something we do every other year.
Yep.
Maybe it's something we do every year. I think how we get the task force to take the data and then act upon the data will determine how we would then follow up.
Yep. And have you had conversations with Deputy Mayor Alpert and
Yes.
the co-chairs of the task force in terms of,
Yes.
I guess you all would be around the, I missed the particular category, but whichever one that Angie Gates and Director Reyes Gavilan might be leading. I think that might be your node around. They're trying to do the activations.
Our chair has been, it was
Yes.
was at that
I
initial
was
meeting.
at that initial meeting, yes. So we are
Okay.
represented in that context.
Yeah.
All right. In terms of space, though, are we thinking non-traditional? So, I mean, in that, right, there's lots of retail first floor space, which you're not getting any foot traffic now. It could very easily be a pop-up gallery space, a pop-up whatever, what have you, getting some foot traffic in. Also offering some studio space to artists for whom it's difficult for them to perhaps pay the full rent for an area. But again, it could help with the foot traffic.
In the meeting that I attended, we were thinking very broadly
Okay.
about all sorts of ways to use that space. And not to, give people what they don't need, but, something is better than nothing.
Right.
And so we want to be aggressive in figuring out how do we make it work.
We were given some tours by both the downtown bid and also the Golden Triangle bid, and and the Georgetown bid. And what we were looking at is not only the first floor space, which is great in some spaces for galleries when we think of hanging paintings and this, that, and the other, but we have to look at also the spaces upstairs as well. There's a lot of organizations that have never had space and they want space, and they want to have office space. They want to have any type of, even some black box theaters usually operate in non-traditional space that may not be
that's
on
a
the
good point.
first floor.
Right.
Sometimes the only impediment are, you remember, the columns. And so the going notion is that it's $1 million per column to move. But in some non-traditional or some, my mind is going
Like
since
improv
COVID.
groups
Yeah,
and-
things of that nature
Yeah.
would be able to use those types of spaces. And it wouldn't require that type of investment in getting rid of columns and things of that nature.
Okay.
And also looking at pop-up. We're looking at pop-ups not in the notion of like 2 or 3 months, but year or longer pop-ups, and seeing if people who may have larger entities in other cities but are interested in supporting the art scene here would be interested in investing and coming here for a year, do a pop-up here, whether it
Like
is
a residency type deal.
that type
And
of
it's
situation.
interesting. I don't, make it a habit to go out to Tyson's, but nonetheless, sometimes you end up in real Virginia. And they have actually revitalized spaces in the mall.
Right.
Like retail spaces that you don't have a store, and now they're like, okay, well, we don't want to just keep it empty. Let's use it for something else. And it has actually worked really well, especially when they are bringing in performances for kids of like, oh, okay, now you got a captive audience because they're here. Now we're going to do lunch. Now we're going to shop. Well, we got to walk to the parking lot, all of those different types of things. And that's one of the things that in my conversations with the folks who are working on the downtown task force is thinking about not just downtown as a destination for an hour, but a
Right.
destination for the day.
Right.
And
Right.
do we have things that allow for continuous, like, oh, well, I'm here, might as well pop in here. Oh, I'm here, let me see what's going on here.
So like if you have like, and I always go back to dance companies, I formerly chaired one, and when you have rehearsals 3 to 4 times a week and say they're downtown DC, for instance, or
Yeah.
even off of Kennedy Street or where have you, what have you, and if they're rehearsing 3 to 4 times a week and you're bringing 40 people and they're plus ones, the people who pick them up or the folks, their partners who have to wait while they're dancing
Yep.
and while they're rehearsing, they want to wait somewhere. They want to eat somewhere. They want to be able to not go all the way back home across town and then come back downtown or wherever they may be. So these tools could help really revitalize neighborhoods. Say a dance company has a 2-year lease downtown or in a certain